So here we go. We're recording. All right.
Hey,
I'm Josh Rodriguez, and then this is an episode of the Library Marketer. Wanted to thank my guest Angela Hursh for joining me today. We're going to go over library marketing and marketing in general at large. So first of all, welcome, Angela. Thanks so much for doing this with me.
thank you. Thank you for
Um,
having me.
Awesome. Yes. I guess my first question would be just hearing more about you, your background, how you got into marketing, and what are your current projects?
Okay. I actually did not start in marketing. I graduated high school, or I graduated college. I went to Bowling Green State University for communications, and before I'd even graduated, was already working at the CBS affiliate in Toledo as a television news producer. I ended up here in Cincinnati following my husband, who got a job at one of the stations here, basically begged them to hire me. And I worked there for almost 20 years. I won an Emmy, which was really exciting. And I really loved that career. But I have always thought that that wasn't the only thing I wanted to do with my life. I have a lot of interests in a lot of different areas. And I had a list of organizations that I would leave television news for. And one of them was the library. And I had been looking for 3 years before that job came open at the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library. And I thought I blew the interview. I thought I did horribly. In fact, I called my husband from the stacks and I was like, I'm not going to get this.
Oh,
And the next day they called to offer it to me. So I think I was maybe meant to be in this space right now. I worked in the marketing department for the library for 7 years. And I started super library marketing about a year into that job because it became very clear to me that Cincinnati Library is well resourced, and many libraries in the country and around the world are not. And I was getting an opportunity to do things and learn things that I knew my colleagues at smaller or rural libraries were not getting to do. So I genuinely just wanted to share what I was learning. If you read some of my early blog posts, they're absolutely horrible, but it's clear that I'm just like, it's almost like free form blogging, thinking of what I was talking about and what I was thinking about in my job at that time. Uh, and then I would go to this conference called the Library Marketing and Communications Conference every year. And I met my current boss there. We had breakfast together and hit it off really well. And she came to one of my sessions I was presenting. And the next day, she texted me. I was in the bathroom getting ready for the next day's activities. And she texted and said, I have this job at Novelist, this job opening, and I'd really love you to apply. And so that's how I ended up at Novelist. Our company is pretty awesome. We have a great group of people. It's a small company, it's a division of EBSCO. So we're a little more agile, but also they're almost everyone who works there has some kind of connection to libraries. They've either worked there or know someone who has worked in a library, and they are all avid readers, which I really love. And Novelist is all about matching books with readers. So I really love my job there, and I get to work with a ton of libraries, and I get to talk to them about what they're doing in library marketing. So it's been good for me because I get to get out more and get more examples from many different types of libraries for the blog, and I just get to do a lot more. I get to help more. So I love that.
awesome. And then with that in mind, we can, I guess, go diving right into just library marketing questions.
Absolutely.
So uh, First off, with your extensive background in being in libraries and now with novelists, what do you think is the biggest challenge library marketers are facing right now? And whatever challenge that may be, why is that challenge persisting, you think?
Well, that the answer to that question changed about 3 weeks ago with and especially in the United States, with the Trump presidential executive order. Essentially, I don't know if they're closing down the Institute of Museum of Library Services or if they're just transforming it, but that has become the key challenge point for libraries all across the United States. Funding is up in the air, and libraries already don't have enough funding for the things that they want to do. I have talked to some libraries in the last 3 weeks who are actually worried that they're not going to have enough money to buy books, much less hire staff, keep their buildings open, or pay for social media ads for their library or do any kind of marketing. And I feel like right now we're in a crisis, to be honest with you. Um, the current political climate in the United States is such that many libraries feel they have to change. Their mission stays the same, but they have to change the way they talk about it. Um, and that has been really upsetting. This has kind of been building over a couple of years. Like before 3 weeks ago, I would have said book challenges, and there's been a movement on the conservative side to put people on library boards who are anti-library, and that has been a real big threat too. But so those are two big threats, and now they're in the back burner because we're all worried about funding. And I'm actually not sure what we should do about this. I just published a post today, about marketing in turbulent times because I felt like I needed to say something and give my friends in the library marketing world some kind of hope and maybe like a list of things to do. So that's what that post is about. But right now, that's the extent of the advice that I can offer. It is scary, it is turbulent, and I worry that the very existence of libraries in the United States are at risk.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I guess with that in mind, in terms of budgeting and also I guess just trying to manage this new um, era, I guess if you will,
Mhm.
building library teams and also just budgeting. But what exactly are you looking for in, let's say, at your time in the library, making a good library team for marketing?
Yeah.
And why do you think it's so hard to find good library marketers nowadays?
I actually don't think it's hard to find good library marketers. I think the problem lies again with budgeting. And there has been, I think this isn't true for large libraries, but for medium and small sized libraries, they have a lot of competing priorities. And oftentimes, marketing their library ends up at the bottom of the pile. They feel like personnel and their buildings and their collection are more valuable. And I get where that's coming from. But why are we even putting money into those things if we're not promoting the library? I don't think a lot of libraries are actually hiring marketing people. They are asking regular library staff who are not trained in marketing to do the marketing. And that's really the crossroads of where that problem lies. Um, I am hoping and have been talking for years about the importance of building a team of marketers. And I think even at small libraries, this can be done, even if it's part-time people. Marketing involves a lot of channels and a lot of tactics and a lot of tiny little detailed work. And it is too much for one person to handle. So, for a small library, I would say have one person in charge of marketing, and then that person can train other library staff, even part time staff, to help pick up the slack for some things like writing an email newsletter or creating social media posts or even just doing the graphics using some kind of design software, like Library Aware or whatever. Um, if they get some more help, then they can focus on those small little things that they need to do well to get their promotions attention. And they don't have to worry about things like creating graphics. And I have learned that at many small libraries, there are lots of people who are willing to pick up those tasks. People want to learn, even library staff, especially library staff, actually, they love to learn new things that are going to make their career more valuable and make the work for the library more valuable. So even if you don't have the money for a large marketing team, you can train people on your market or on your library staff to do promotions and do them well. It's just a matter of training, honestly.
Perfect. Um, so with that in mind, what specific skills or qualities do you think are essential to building a good library marketing team, regardless if it's big or small? And then, yeah, I guess that's mainly what I'm not sure if I had asked that already. No, I can't. I lost track here myself.
No, you didn't. It's a good
But yeah,
question.
basically, yeah, like the skill sets, I guess. Where should they go? I guess for learning these different platforms,
Yeah.
marketing strategies, whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big ones is the ability or the willingness to always be learning. Um, and it kind of depends on what kind of media, or I'm sorry, what kind of marketing that they want to do. For email marketing, there's this guy named Jay Schwedelson. He's on LinkedIn. He runs a free conference every November called the Guru Conference, and it is all about email marketing, and it's free and it's virtual. They don't do recordings, so you actually have to attend virtually. And I think it's good because I think staff who are doing marketing need some time just set aside for them to learn. And that is a great conference to go to. Obviously, the Library Marketing and Communication Conference is extraordinary, and every library marketer in America should be there.
Mhm.
I find that when people come to that conference, especially when they come for the first time, they are often working in a library and all their coworkers don't really understand what it is they do and why they do it. And then they go to that conference and they're like surrounded by their soulmates, kind of their marketing soulmates, and they build confidence and they learn things, and it's just great. Um, I also, I told you I work for Novelist. We have a professional development platform that's actually part of my job is to create marketing courses for libraries. So something like that is really valuable as well. I
Mhm.
think the other big skill that library marketers need to have is the willingness to experiment. That can be difficult if you have an administration that likes to do things one way all the time. This is how we've always done it. But marketing is a scientific experiment all of the time. My staff at Novelist, we are always trying new things out. Even we started an experiment about 3 months ago where we started sending our monthly newsletter on a weekend because I'd heard Jay Schwedelson say if you send an email on a weekend or especially on a Saturday, it might get a higher open rate. And it worked.
Oh, wow.
If my boss hadn't supported me in making that strange, choice, I wouldn't have found that out. But we got better metrics sending on the weekend. So you just kind of have to always be open to try new things. And hopefully you have the support of your administration to do that.
Actually, I recently saw one of your posts about like the bureaucracy, I guess, that's surrounding library marketing and also getting things approved.
Yeah.
I'm curious
Yeah.
if you can speak a little bit on that just for sake of the interview, even though they can definitely go on your website, your blog, or your actually it's on YouTube too as well.
Yeah.
YouTube.
No, yes, it was I was like, where did I put that? It's on the library marketing show. You're
Right.
right. YouTube. Yep.
Yeah, I guess speaking a little bit on that, dealing with the bureaucracy, I guess, in library marketing, and also just
Yeah.
depending on whether or not you're, attached to either just like a municipal library or to a government, whatever have you.
Yeah.
Curious about how that works in terms of getting approval, backing on different experimenting, because if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's kind of the motto of I think a lot of library systems. So depending on if they're bringing somebody from the outside that has marketing experience, or also just people that are become library marketers just because of the need, I'm curious um, how library marketers can navigate um,
Yeah.
the approval process, like you mentioned, I think in the video, and also just yeah, like trying to get people to try new things. Curious thoughts on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I ran into this, I don't want to call it a problem. It was a challenge. It was a hurdle at the library in Cincinnati. We had a
Yeah.
very complicated approvals process when I first came on board, and it took forever to get something out into the world. And it took me a while to streamline that process in a way that made everybody feel comfortable. So, one of the things I did was a lot of meetings with the people who had approval, got to approve my stuff. And a lot of meetings before I even sent them the things to explain what this is, why we're doing it, to do my research. I mean, it's good for me too. So I could say, this is our target audience. This is why we're saying what we're saying. This is why we're sending it when we're sending it, and giving them all of the background information so that they are more likely to approve it. You're still going to run into people who want to question you, and that is okay. We have a pretty streamlined approvals process at Novelist as well. It's usually like 2 weeks start to finish for most things we send out into the world. Some of the things we do, again, are that being transparent, talking about what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish, but also giving people a firm deadline. We usually say, please add your feedback by such and such date. And everybody knows now that if they don't add it by that date, their feedback is probably not going to be included. That's just the prerogative of our department. We set a date, we got to get it out there, we got to ship stuff. So I'm not waiting around for folks. And to be honest with you, once you get started with that process, people fall in line and they know what the expectation is. So they're more likely to uh, stay within the constraints or the boundaries that you have created. The
Mm.
other bureaucracy story that I like to tell is at the library in Cincinnati. I wanted to start a blog. And they thought they had a blog a couple of years before I got there, but it was not a blog. It was just like a social media platform that they were posting on. Anyway, I did PowerPoint presentations. I went to meetings. I talked about it consistently with my boss and my boss's boss. It took 5 years for me to get a blog. So, my third piece of advice is be persistent and just keep asking. Eventually, you will make your point and they will say yes. And you can't give up. Don't be the one to give up. If you know it's a good move for your library marketing, then just be persistent.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. All right, so with that in mind, people are often amazed at what libraries offer for free. I feel like typically you ask anyone on the street and they're like, "What? Hoopla for free? Breagle? Mango languages?" Depending on the library.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Resources, whatnot, programs, and the fact that it's free. Which I've also found for at least Miami Dade public libraries is the fact that the everyone thinks there's always like a catch with our services.
Hmm. Hmm.
In what ways are library marketers currently falling short in communicating their library's true value, you think? How
Mm.
best can we um, get that word out there that we are free? I mean, taxpayer dollars, but we don't, minus that.
Yeah.
Really is free.
Yeah.
So
I
just
get
curious, yeah, where library marketers are falling short and just really communicating um, the fact that they're free.
I guess from my experience, it would be many of the folks who are doing library marketing are getting pressure from other people at their library to do their one-off promotions. I've got an event coming up. I want you to talk about it. We often see that those messages end up sounding more like noise. They don't resonate, and they don't leave library marketers much room in their schedule to do what you're talking about, which is basically a version of brand awareness, and letting people know that we do have all these things for free. I have recommended to libraries that they set aside like a certain portion of their yearly editorial calendar for those brand awareness campaigns. It's probably easiest to do maybe one a month, uh, maybe one post or one thing every week that you do that drives home that point. Focused on your library strategic plan, because our marketing should always be in service of the strategic plan. So, if your library strategic plan includes a goal of increasing language abilities in your community, then you're going to want to focus that section of your editorial calendar on Mango languages or whatever other language opportunities you have, your English as a second language groups, or um, your programs, even that are connected to that. I think the other good thing to do for libraries is to make sure that every time you do a program or you have an event, that you are also promoting things that are connected to that event. So again, for example, if there was a talk, like say you have somebody come to your library who's going to talk about the new influx of a certain of migrants from a certain country because your community is welcoming to them. It would be great also to tell people during that program about how they can learn to speak to those folks in their native languages using Mango language. So cross promotion, and then also just purposefully setting aside time in your calendar for those brand awareness campaigns.
Hmm. Okay, that's good. Um, Appreciate that. How do you personally keep up to date with the latest trends in marketing, or I guess library marketing specifically? But I guess that's kind of a twofold question where
Yeah.
following, I guess, mainstream marketing trends, let's say, for
Yeah.
example, TikTok within the last few years.
Hmm.
At least for us, Miami-Dade public libraries, we're not allowed to use TikTok.
Hmm.
Um, but it could be where there's alternatives in like using Instagram Reels, let's say. But
Yeah.
I guess in general, marketing trends as a whole, and then down the funnel, library marketing, how do you keep up to date with trends and whatnot? What's your source?
That's a great question. I have a couple of marketing experts. Well, they are marketing experts that I follow. Ann Handley is one of them. Drew Davis is another. Jay Kunzo. And they're more of like the 30,000 foot level marketing experts. I find that they usually if I'm getting their newsletters, I have a heads up on trends that are happening in the for-profit world. I think it takes a little bit of time for those things to get to libraries, again, because most of the time we don't have the money to take advantage of fancy new technology, or we don't have the time because we don't have dedicated marketing teams like many large companies do. So I watch those guys and then I kind of know what's coming down the road. There is a website called Social Media Today that I have signed up for a daily newsletter from. So that's how I keep up on all my social media trends. They're very good. And then for library marketing, we have the Library Marketing Book Club, which I'm a co-host for. It's free. Anybody can join it. And we read a marketing book every 2 months and meet to talk about it. And I find that that's kind of like the deep dive research for me, really getting into the nitty gritty of what authors who are writing books about marketing have to say about trends. So those are kind of the three things that I do.
Perfect. Um, Moving on to more demographic based
Yeah.
my inquiries. So, what advice would you give the library marketers as well, struggling to engage with like challenging demographics, particularly teens, younger generations? You could say also Gen Z, put them in that crowd, but basically, like it even could branch out to just any demographic that you haven't necessarily reached it within your community. How do you go about penetrating those new um, demographics in your community?
Mhm.
Even neighboring communities that could potentially, come over to your library. How do you reach those demographics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. I'll start by saying Gen Z is a really avid group of readers.
Mm.
And I actually created a course for Learn with Novelist about how to reach out to millennials and Gen Z, because if we get those folks to be loyal library users, we will be set for life. They're not only very avid readers, they're also really great about speaking out for organizations they support. And clearly, they will support the library because we have values and a mission statement that really align with that generation.
Mm.
For any new target audience that you're trying to reach, I think research is number one. Look at your census data, go to that community and talk to people, do some outreach at the places where they might be hanging out to learn more about them. You can also use AI for this stuff. I have used AI to create target personas in different areas of my city.
Mhm.
And it just kind of congregates all of the available data and puts it together in a nice little package for you so that you can then start thinking about, well, what's the language that I want to use that will really connect with these people? What are the images I want to use? And I know it sounds complicated, but it really isn't. It's kind of like getting to know a person. Like once you know the person, you may know they prefer for you to text them or to call them for communications. They prefer certain kinds of food, or they like to do certain kinds of activities if you guys want to go hang out. It's like that. It's just getting to know your customers in that particular demographic group and then figuring out, okay, what can I say? What can I show you that is really going to connect with you?
Perfect. Um, can you highlight a standout example of any effective library marketing you encountered recently, and
Oh my gosh.
what made the campaign, if you know enough about it, particularly successful?
Yeah. I like to do this thing on my LinkedIn a couple of times a week where I highlight libraries that are doing cool stuff. I have a hashtag I started called Library of the Day.
Mhm.
And then I also give kudos in the library marketing show. And I think they all kind of run together for me, honestly. I'm actually, I got a really awesome example today. This is new. Nobody's heard this. Forsyth County Public Library in Georgia opened a new branch 2 days ago. And I learned today that the marketer who's in charge of that library had 1 day's notice to promote the opening of this library. And she did a fantastic job. And the reason it was fantastic was she used video. She got a selfie stick and she went out and they live streamed the opening of the branch. And then she did a whole bunch of different videos that she was able to post on different social media platforms. And what ended up happening was the newspaper or the news media in her area picked up that story and ran with it. And so she got all this great coverage in the media, which of course reaches a whole new audience of people who might not have thought of the library in a while. She was very agile and flexible about it. So I think those were the key things. She was flexible and she used video. Video is big right now on social media platforms. Video is big everywhere. But those are the two reasons I think why that opening went off so smoothly and in such a short amount of time.
And with that in mind, how do you keep up to date with all the new library things, I guess you could say? How did you find out about Georgia? Was it Forsyth that you said?
Yeah, Forsyth County Public Library. I happen to be friends with the marketer who's
Oh, okay,
there, so
perfect.
that helps.
Okay.
But and I actually saw her post on Facebook. Like it
Okay.
got fed to me in the algorithm. Um, I also do Google Alerts. So I have Google Alerts for libraries and marketing, and I try to look through that every day to see if I can find good examples. Working at Novelist helps. I get to see a lot of library websites and social media platforms and talk to a lot of library marketers. So I can hold up their marketing as an example of this is what you want to do for your library. It might be easier for me to find these examples than other people just because of my job. But those are some things that I do. Yeah.
Awesome. Um, how effective is humor as a tool in library marketing? Is there a time when humor becomes inappropriate or risky? What's like the line, I guess you could say, for using humor and I guess the voice, because you also have to, take into account your county if you're involved in one. So it really just depends. So I'm curious how using humor as a tool in marketing for
Yeah.
yeah.
I think mixing it in. So you don't always want to be funny and you don't always want to be serious. And you were right. You kind of have to feel that out within your own community.
Mm.
My former library, Cincinnati Library, does a good job of this on their social media platforms. Their social media specialist, his name is Paul. He will do like three reels that are sort of serious, and then he'll do like one hilarious, funny one. Milwaukee Public Library is also really good at balancing the humor and the seriousness. And I think you just got to kind of start doing it and then see what the reaction is from your community, whether they accept that humor and find it to be amusing and charming for your library or whether they feel like it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
Um, I wrote a blog post that published a few weeks ago on a library marketer who does a big April Fool's joke every year. So one year she pretended that they were renaming the main library after Paul or Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Um, Another year she pretended like they were opening a library of cats where people could come and check out a cat. And those are really funny. And she talks in that blog post about that line, like there were still some people in her community who were upset by those posts, but there were more folks who found them amusing. You kind of are not going to know that until you do it. So you just kind of have to experiment again. Just like we said, marketing is an experiment and
Mm.
see what works with your community in terms of humor.
Very cool. In terms of mascots,
Mm,
what's your opinion on using mascots as part of library branding and marketing? And if a library wanted to create and implement one,
yeah.
what advice would you give?
Oh, good question. Okay. So mascots are great for outreach programs. We had a mascot, I think the library still has it, named Rufus, who would go in parades, would be available for, we had a library day at the Cincinnati Reds, so obviously the mascot was there for that. Um, Other outreach events around the community, especially that involve kids. So if kids and literacy are a big part of your strategic plan, then a mascot may be appropriate. I mean, I've seen libraries that don't have a mascot who are doing well in terms of circulation and program attendance. So I don't feel like a mascot is necessary. But if you're in a community where you do a lot of those kind of outreach events, a mascot can be very helpful. Um, they're very expensive to create, and you have to think about who's going to wear the costume. They get very hot, and they're very heavy, so you have to have a process in place for picking people to be the mascot. We had a volunteer program at our library, and we would have to interview people and vet them, and we gave them volunteer hours if they were working on something, especially high school students, to get them excited about being the mascot. But it was a lot of work, so you really have to consider, is this going to be worth it for my library or not? And I think that depends on what your goals are and how much money you have in your budget.
True. Any guess that stand out to you that you particularly like? Big or small? Any
I'm sorry,
mas
what was the question again?
any mascots that you
Oh,
particularly? Yeah.
I don't really, I haven't seen any lately.
No?
I haven't seen, I know the Delaware County District Library in Columbus, they won an award, the John Cotton Dana Award, a couple years ago, and that's a $10,000 prize, and they were going to put it towards a mascot. But I personally have not seen the results
Hmm.
of them using that award, and I haven't lately seen any library. That's a great. I need to do some research. I need to look up some library mascots. I haven't thought about that for a while. I'm so sorry. I don't have
No,
any
no, it's fine.
examples.
Recently, Broward County Library made a manatee mascot, but we
Oh,
had to
that
say
makes
that it
sense.
was just like a stock image from, you know, I'm not sure
Yeah.
how extensive they went with their branding regarding the manatee, but they use it now for like their library cards. They have a library card featuring the manatee,
Hmm.
standees and whatnot. But
Yeah.
that's just one example locally that I can think of. Miami-Dade
Yeah.
Public doesn't have one.
Yeah.
But there are a couple. I think there's one with a raccoon. They have a raccoon puppet, and it's escaping.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's some interesting ones out there. So I'm curious because
Okay.
some do need them. I think it helps with just putting a face. I think makes it more
Yeah.
I don't know, friendly, inviting. That's also
Hmm.
that's curious also because in terms of I guess the angle of having it be either a kid's mascot or the library's mascot as a whole. At least for Miami-Dade Public Libraries, we're kind of geared towards I wouldn't say business, but more professional, informational kind of voice and um, face. So then, if you were to ever have a mascot, let's say as an example, I think it would probably have to be a kid's mascot. I don't think it just depends on your library. It seems like um,
Yeah.
the face of your entire library, just maybe like the kids department. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you ever do any research, I'd love to see some posts or videos about mascots. So in terms of marketing channels, whether it be digital, print, paid advertising, etc. Um, which do you find to be consistently effective for libraries?
Email.
Email. Email, let's
I'll just say
say,
it right now. It's
yeah,
email. Um,
free, reach a wide audience.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you, so my philosophy on email has changed. I, in our current environment, an opt-in system for email is more effective. So here's what I mean by that. You create an opt-in page on your website and you have different categories. You have to think about how much time do I have to create these emails and do I have the content to populate them? But if you create different subscriber interest groups and let people choose, yes, I want to hear about this thing, I don't want to hear about this other thing, your emails are going to be more effective. A library that does a really good job of this is the Delafield Public Library in Wisconsin. They have a lot of interest groups. If you look at their opt in page, it's a little overwhelming. However, I know the person who markets there, she does not send an email to every one of those subscriber groups every month or every week. She sends them email when she has something that she needs to say to them. And so they know they're not going to get overwhelmed by a bunch of emails from her. They know when they get an email from the library that it is something valuable to them because they have told the library that.
Hmm.
And I think that is one of the reasons that her email campaigns are so successful. She's really targeted about her content and she lets people decide what they want to hear about from the library.
Hmm. In regards to email marketing, because actually I'm responsible for the Miami-Dade Public Library's e-newsletter, which
Mm,
is bi-weekly. And that seems to be pretty successful for us, but curious your opinions on content management systems. Let's say even just, I guess, e-newsletters as a whole, just diving deeper into that, finding out, what works best in terms of releasing the newsletter, the style, even let's say, how much you say in a newsletter, like what's a good length for a newsletter? I guess just
mhm.
speaking in general, what are your thoughts and I guess maybe best
Yeah.
practices for email marketing?
I'll actually send you after this. I'll send you a link for the Library Marketing Book Club we talked about before. And then our company, Novelist, has a white paper that we put out about with like all the best practices for newsletters.
Hmm.
We also did the first email library industry trends for email, like what is the benchmarks for open rate, click rate, and how do you do those? What do those metrics mean to people? I'll send you that as well because we have all of our best practices in there. In general, you're right. the tone of your email is going to reflect your overall tone. So hopefully you've already established at your library what your overall tone, if you're professional, if you're casual, if you are witty and funny, that should be reflected in your email newsletter. I like to remind people that most people are not going to scroll through a very long email. I would say usually the first 3 to 4 things that you have in your newsletter get clicked on or get looked at. After four, it's got to be really compelling, or people are going to scroll right past it or just delete it and they're done. So short emails are better. If that means you have to send more emails more often, that's okay. It works. It still works. Like again, Delafield Public Library, again, just a couple of things in each of their newsletters, no more than 3 or 4, and they may send more often than some libraries do. I don't know where we came up with this idea in library world that we had to send one newsletter with everything in it once a month. I think that's from the era of newspapers when we
Mhm.
all waited for the newspaper to get the news, but that's not the world we live in anymore. People are okay with more emails as long as they're shorter.
Mhm.
Um, I am a fan of not a whole lot of text, good use of white space, a graphic or a photo that reflects or adds to the emotion of the thing that you're talking about in your email, if there is an emotion. And then, yeah, just keeping it consistent. So you want to send them consistently, and you'll have to experiment to see what day and time to send for your community. Every library is different. Well, that's a fun experiment to run, though.
Mhm.
And that's the big basics of best practices for email. Keep it short, send it consistently, and be open to feedback. You can ask your email subscribers to send you feedback. In fact, one thing that Ann Handley does, she's a metric that I don't use, but maybe someday in the future I will. That she made up called click to reply. So she asks a question at the end of every newsletter and sees how many people respond to it. So the more compelling the question is, the more responses she's going to get. That works really well because, believe it or not, email providers have an algorithm similar to social media platforms. So if they see that people are interacting with your email in that way by sending a reply, they are more likely to make sure your email ends up in the regular inbox and not the spam or promotion inbox.
Mhm. For the sake of the show, would you mind mentioning the book you're gonna send me later, just so people listening can know what book you're gonna recommend
Oh,
for?
I'm going to send you a link to subscribe or sign up for the Library Marketing Book Club.
Okay.
We are meeting on May 13th next, and our book, I can't remember the name of it, but it's by Mark Schaefer and it's really good. I'm really
Okay.
excited about it. It's on Amazon. And then I'm going to send you the white paper that novelists created about email newsletters and their best practices and our industry metric report for emails. There has not been a way for us to see if our emails are doing well because nobody has been looking at the library industry, which is totally different when we
Hmm.
send emails. The closest we had for comparison was nonprofits. So Novelist took our data from Library Aware, which is our email platform.
Hmm.
It's actually an all-purpose marketing platform, so it's more than email. But we took that data and created the first benchmark, and we'll probably do that every year. So I'll send you the latest one.
Interesting. Yeah, we go by I think just government metrics. So I want to say the typical open rate is maybe between 27 to 20%.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we go based on. But that is interesting because libraries are kind of their own thing. So you can't really,
Yes, they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but that's actually interesting. I'm looking forward to reading that.
Sure.
Uh, I guess the last question I have, what, speaking of resources and books and whatnot, what resources like books, podcasts, even let's say movies, or
Yeah.
different tools, would you recommend for what I like to call accidental marketers, library marketers, who,
Yeah.
like I mentioned earlier, many of them are just, um, I think even our social media specialist, she is not a social media uh, person by trade, but became one just out of necessity.
Yeah.
Um, so what I guess resources? I guess obviously would I'm sure recommend Novelist.
Yes.
Outside of that, yeah, just tools for library marketers to learn more. It can even be, let's say, in the you know private sector world. I even looked to movies. Let's say I'm not sure if you've seen Air, about
No.
the creation of the Jordan shoe. Uh,
Oh, okay.
the
Yeah.
whole. inner machinations of how Ben Affleck's character and his team and Matt Damon, I think how they were able to one market the shoe and also get the deal with Jordan. Um,
Yeah.
I didn't have one of my coworkers loves Mad Men, so like
Oh
just
yes.
yeah,
Oh
I've never seen
yes.
it. I want to.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Yeah, great show. Very
and
inspirational.
that's
A
advertising, right?
little fantastical, I think. The short amount of time in which they come up with campaigns, that doesn't happen in the real
No.
world. But I like to shoot for that. Like I
Yeah.
just want to get an idea like he does and then run with it. And it's amazing and fantastic. And
Right.
usually not based in any kind of research. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
But that was the 1950s too. So let's remember that our world is much different now.
That's also true. I guess it was kind of like a Wild West back then, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
also
for
different.
sure.
But I guess where would you look for, inspiration or learning more about marketing?
Yeah.
And I guess where your influence from maybe even just like the private sector,
Yeah.
leading into library marketing. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay, so for social media, like I said, Social Media Today is a great website. I signed up for their newsletters. I have Ann Handley's newsletter. She sends it out every 2 weeks. The books that we read in the Library Marketing Book Club. Um, I often say, if you really want to learn how to write well and write good text for blogs and or campaigns, read fiction. Whatever kind of fiction that you like, because that's creative writing. And I like to pull things like scene setting or descriptions of characters. I just find inspiration from for that, even in my work at Novelist. Novelist is we're pretty formal, because we're marketing to libraries,
Hmm.
but and we want to be professional, but you can still be creative. And I still get inspiration from fiction writers.
Hmm.
It helps influence the way I write my materials. Um, I do use AI, however, I do not start with AI. I will write what I call an ugly first draft. It's actually a term that Ann Handley taught me, where you basically like free form just whatever you're thinking on a piece of paper, and then you kind of weed it down and try to make sense of it. If I'm having a hard time with a paragraph or like a phrase and I know what I want it to say, but I can't think of the way I want it to say it, I will ask AI to help me. I don't usually use its actual answer, but something happens with my brain where I go, oh, that's not exactly what I wanted, but you're helping me get to the place where I wanted to be.
Hmm.
I work remotely, so I don't have any coworkers to go bounce ideas off of usually. So AI is my idea bouncer. Or if I need an idea for even a blog title or just a like blog topic, I can go to AI and ask it some questions, and it will help with that brainstorming. Um, Trying to think if there's anything else. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I mean, that's really what, and like some webinars, I sign up for a lot of webinars through like Marketing Profs, the Content Marketing Institute, and HubSpot. They usually have some free webinars that they offer several times a month. And if I can make time in my schedule, I will go to those or I will sign up and then get the recording and watch them later.
Hmm.
We're lucky at Novelist. We have a day set aside once a quarter where everyone is just supposed to do professional development. So I kind of have like a little folder where all those webinars are sitting, waiting for me for the next day of learning, we call it, where I can get in there and learn. And then like conferences, I'm lucky I get to go to a lot of conferences and I usually try to go to the marketing sessions.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're library conferences, so I learn about libraries doing different things. Sometimes they're non-library, like they're out in the profit world, and I learn again the trends that are coming. Usually big companies are doing things about 5 years ahead of where libraries are. Um, but I'm still learning things and I'm always like translating in my head what they're saying. How would this apply in a library context?
Hmm.
So I'm just kind of like all over the place. LinkedIn is also another really great place to network and get to know people who are working in different marketing spaces and learn from them. Just always ask yourself, could I do this? Maybe not now, but could I in the future? And how would I get there? And what would this mean for my library? And if you get super excited about something and you think that it'll work really well for your library, you're probably onto something and it might be a tactic or a concept that you want to pursue.
Awesome. Well, with that, Angela, I'm sure we could be here for hours because I learned so much from you. But
Sure.
with that, I'm gonna go ahead and end this session. But
Sure.
before we go, I would love for you to mention where people can find you and connect with you best, and anything
Sure.
in terms of, I think you're even traveling out tomorrow. No, am I correct?
I am.
And
Yep. I'm going to be at
yeah,
the Texas Library Association conference this week. I normally will tell people just find me on LinkedIn. It's probably the best place to connect. They can also go to superlibrarymarketing.com. I have a connect page there where they can email me. I'm always looking for questions that I can answer in the blog or do videos about or kudos. So if you see a library doing something fun or interesting or different or just successful in library marketing, you can let me know there and I will give kudos to that library. And then also on that website is where all of my upcoming appearances are at. So if I'm going to be somewhere near you, please reach out and connect to me. I am going to be at the American Library Association conference later this summer also. So hopefully I'll get to meet some folks there.
perfect. Well, Angela, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and hope to do this very, very, very soon.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a real honor.
Well, a pleasure. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.